Hello, everybody. This is Paul, and here we are doing a Revelation 17 in our daily Bible reading. And I pray everyone's doing well out there as we get started with our reading. We're going to open up with the Shema found in Deuteronomy 6:4-9, and we continue to get closer to the end of the book of Revelation. And I pray you're getting a lot from these videos. So we start off with our prayer here. Shema Yisrael. Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kivo, Mahuto, Leolam Vaed. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you should love Yahweh with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And have these words which I command you this day be upon your heart. And you shall teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you retire and when you arise. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and let them be frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and upon your gates. All right, so we are getting started here with Revelation 17, right in verse 1, where it reads, one of the seven angels who had poured out the seven bowls came over and spoke to me. Come with me, he said, and I will show you the judgment that is going to come on the great prostitute who rules over many waters. In verse 1, it says in a note, the destruction of Babylon mentioned in 16 verses 17 to 21 is now described in greater detail. The great prostitute called Babylon represents the earthly Roman Empire with its many gods and blood of Christian martyrs on its hands. The water stands for either sea, commerce, or well-watered, well-provisioned city. The great prostitute represents the seductiveness of the government system that uses immoral means to gain its own pleasure, prosperity, and advantage. In contrast to the prostitute, Yeshua's bride, the church, is pure and obedient. The wicked city of Babylon contrasts with the heavy city of Jerusalem, the heavenly city of Jerusalem. The original readers probably rather quickly identified Babylon with Rome, but Babylon also symbolizes any system that is hostile to Yahweh. So that is for verse 1. And then it says here in the One New Man Bible for verse 1, many waters can be used as a symbol for the enormous crowd of people, as in verse 15 and Revelations 19:16. This is what it's explaining or showing for verse 1. So we read verse 2 here, and it says, the kings of the world have committed adultery with her, and the people who belong to this world have been made drunk by the wine of her immorality. And verse 3, so the angel took me in spirit into the wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on the scarlet beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and blasphemies against Yahweh were written all over it. This is here, verse 3, and a note for verse 3 says, the angel took John into the wilderness to see the prostitute in her reality. The scarlet beast is either the dragon of Revelations 12:3 or the beast is out of the sea described in 13:1. Sometimes we can only get a clear view of reality when we step back from our daily lives and see the patterns of evil and sin around us. Retreats, confidence, and days of prayer and fasting can help us educate ourselves from jobs, newspapers, and television and bring us to a new spiritual height. Take time to view the reality of your life and evaluate its direction and activities. Do these glorify Yahweh and renew you to serve others? This is verse 3. And verse 4 says, the woman wore purple and scarlet clothing and beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. In her hand she held a gold goblet full of obscenities and impurities of her immorality. This is for verse 4. And as we read here in the One New Man Bible, it says here, immorality in verse 4, because some translations, let's see, it says, and the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a gold hand cup would fill detestable and unclean things from her idolatry or immorality. And we went back in verse 2, and it said the same thing here in the One New Man Bible. The verse read, with the kings of the earth did she fornicate, and those who dwell on the earth became drunk from the wine of her idolatry. Idolatry and immorality, relating it to the same things here in verse 4. Then for verse 4 in the Hebraic root scripture, says the golden cup represents that Babylon at one time was a servant of Yahweh and had worth, but due to their abundance of wealth and pleasure seeking, they became defiled and fully corrupted. So that was for verse 4. Then we go verse 5. A mysterious name was written on her forehead, Babylon the Great, mother of all prostitutes and obscenities in this world. Wow. Verse 6 we read, I could see that she was drunk with the blood of Yahweh's holy people who were witnesses for Yeshua. I stared at her in complete amazement. The note here says, throughout history, people have been killed for their faith. Over the last century, millions have been killed by oppressive governments, and many of those victims were believers. The woman's drunkenness shows her pleasure in her evil accomplishments and her false feeling of triumph over the church. But every martyr who has fallen before her sword has only served to strengthen the faith of the church. Persecution is by no means a thing of the past. Believers in many parts of the world know that faith in Yeshua it amounts to a death sentence. Believers who live in places free of such persecution must not forget to pray for their brothers and sisters in Yeshua, those in difficult places of the world. Absolutely. We need to remember the things like that. And verse 7 says, why are you so amazed? The angel asked. I will tell you the mystery of this woman and the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns on which she sits. This is verse 8 now. The beast you saw was once alive, but isn't now. And yet he will soon come up out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction. And the people who belong to this world, whose names were not written in the book of life before the world was made, will be amazed at the reappearance of this beast who had died. And in verse 8, the note says, in chapter 12, we met the dragon, Satan. In chapter 13, we saw the beast from the sea and the power he received from Satan. In chapters 14 and 16, we see Yahweh's great judgments. In this chapter, a scarlet beast, similar to the beast and the dragon, appears, an ally of the great prostitute. The beast was alive, dead, and then came back to life. The beast's resurrection symbolizes the persistence of evil. This resurrection of evil power will convince many to join forces with the beast. But those who choose the side of evil condemn themselves with the devil's faith, eternal torment. Wow. And that's now we go to and for verse 8, now we go to verse 9. 9 says, this calls for a mind with understanding. 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 hills where women rule, where the woman rules. They also represent 7 kings. Now, verse 9 in the In the Aramaic English New Testament says the only city on earth that boasts of sitting on 7 hills is Rome. The Catholic Encyclopedia states it is within the city of Rome, called the City of 7 Hills, that the entire area of the Vatican state proper, is now confined. Wow. So that's for verse 9. And we have a few more notes on verse 9. Now, verse 9, we read here in the Hebraic root scripture. It says, mountains in scripture represent a large land, a mess of the and the fact that Babylon sits on 7 mountains, showing that it is controlling the world, which is made up of 7 continents. 7 is also the number of completeness, showing Babylon's total control over the world economy and social system. That's 9. Then we go on, we read verse 10 that says, 5 kings have already fallen, and the 6th now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come, but his reign will be brief. The scarlet beast that was, but is no longer, is the 8th king. He is like the other 7, and he too is headed for destruction. So verses 9 to 11, it says, in the New Living Testament, it says, here John is referring to Rome, the city of the famous for its 7 hills. Many say that this city also symbolizes all evil of the world. Any person, religion, group, government, or structure that oppose Yeshua. Whatever view is taken on the 7 hills and the 7 kings, the section indicates the climax of Satan's struggle against Yahweh. Evil's power is limited and its destruction is on the horizon. That's for 9 to 11. Now, verse 11 in the Hebraic root scripture says, although Babylon is a physical country, in the end, there has been 7 world empires of trading that Babylon has represented. Well, that's 11. And then verse 12, we read, then 10 horns of the beast are 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. They will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. And verse 12, the note says, as we ponder the identity of the 7 kings and the emergence of the 10 kings, we must see John's theme of worldly power and its ultimate ineffectiveness against Yahweh and his people. Their author only lasts, or their authority only lasts for a brief moment, symbolizing bravery and ultimate destruction. As believers we become infatuated with the worldly power of movie stars, sports, celebrities, political correlations, and world economy forces. Are you craving the power and prestige, that position, wealth, and connection to others? If so, you are an easy target for Satan's great deception. Worldly power is Satan's trap. The desire for it can turn us away from Yahweh. Worship only Yahweh and make sure your strongest desire is to serve him. That we read that for verse 12. Verse 13. Then the angel said to me, the waters where the prostitute is ruling represents the masses of people of every nation and language. The scarlet beast and his 10 horns all hate the prostitute. They will strip her naked, eat her flesh, and burn her remains with fire. So for verse 16 here, it says, the dramatic turn of events, the prostitute's allies turn on her and destroy her. This is how evil operates. Destructive by its very nature, it discards own adherents that they cease to serve when they cease to serve its purpose. The unholy alliance is an uneasy alliance because each partner puts his own interest first. So for verses 15, it says Babylon, and in the one new in the Hebraic root scriptures, it reads, Babylon is a great melting pot of immigrants from many countries, as found in Jeremiah 51:13. And reading this for verse 14, when we go back to 14, and it said in the Hebraic root, in the Aramaic scriptures, these will make war with the lamb, and the lamb will cover the beast, because he is the master of masters, king of kings, and those with him. Master, king, kings, and those with him, called the chosen and the faithful. So as we read 14, it said, together they will go against war, but the Lamb will defeat them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and all called chosen ones will be with him. So in reading verse 14, the note here in the Aramaic goes on to say, master of master could mean Lord of lords. Lord of lords. So that was going back to verse 14. We did 15 and 16, and now verse 17, we see here, it says, for Yahweh has put a plan into their minds, and a plan that will carry out his purposes. They will agree to give their authority to the scarlet beast, and so the words of Yahweh will be fulfilled. And in 17, the note says, no matter what happens, we must trust that Yahweh is still in charge, that Yahweh overrules the plans and the plans of the evil one, and Yahweh's plans will happen just as he says. Yahweh even uses people opposed to him as a tool to execute his will. Although he allows evil to germinate in this present world, the new earth will never know sin. And that was for 17. And for verse 17 here in the One New Man Bible, it says and reads, for Yahweh gave into their hearts to do his purpose and make judgment. And make judgment means to be in unity and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of Yahweh will be fulfilled. So that was 17. Make judgment means in unity. And then we go on to 18, and verse 18 says, and this woman you saw in your vision represents the great city that rules over kings of the world. And for verse 18, we read here in the Hebraic root scriptures, end times Babylon controls the global world system, in which all the other nations assemble to her. Only the USA with the United Nations in New York fits this criteria. Wow. Wow. That is chapter 17 of our Revelations reading. Thank you all for joining me for these readings. And you can see all the readings we've done on every chapter in the scriptures. Go to our site and check them out. Until then, everybody have a blessed day. May Yahweh be with you this day and always. Thank you for watching these. Please share them with others. And shalom, shalom.